That's one thing I like about the presentation format is it's like, I kind of have an interest in that, but you're not really sure, and then you just get in this whole new world, the language and everything. Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Cool. And for the stream, if you just want to use the microphone as much as possible,
Sure.
that'd be fantastic. You can kind of stand around it, and we'll get you.
Okay. Thank you. Hey, Kayla. How you doing? Good. I'm excited we made it to our last session here. Yeah. We'll see about that.
Yeah, so I went
2019, probably? Yeah.
before I got out. I just found him on Instagram. Started following him on Instagram and stuff like that. And then reached out and was like, hey, wondering if you do blocks.
Yeah. We saw some turkeys, put some turkeys back in, I think, that had gotten out. That was back when I had turkeys, so that must have been that could have been 2018 even. Yeah. Time flies when you're farming. All right, well, it's 2:10, so I guess we can get started. We've made it to the last session. Is everyone having fun at the conference? Any favorite takeaways or favorite sessions you've been to? Poultry was a good one with Early Bird Farm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's all that chicken manure. Yeah, great, cool. Well, welcome to Sustainable Farm Finance. I see some coffee, that's great. We're gonna try to wake up a little bit. Thank you for taking the time. I know that road home might have looked tempting, but I'm glad you stayed. I'll try to make it worth your while. I'm Grant Jones, I'm with Hungry Hollow Farm. I farm down on my family's 4th generation farm in Mason County. And today, we're gonna keep it really simple. I'm gonna talk a little bit about myself, talk a little bit about income statements, everyone's favorite subject. And then I'm gonna talk about, we're just gonna dive into my farm and understand what our production models look like, what our finances have looked like the whole way, and how we're projecting that out. And then my hope is, initially I had worksheets that we could maybe like try to fill in. I decided it was too much, and so what I think is gonna work better, all of the tables I'll show, it'll look like there's a lot of numbers on them, but in reality, they're really simple tables, right? And I put only one table per slide, and the idea is these slides will be available on the TILF website, or yes, these slides will be available. So don't try to scribble everything down. There's gonna be way too many numbers to try to get down. Just try to take in the main concepts, and then when you get home, your homework is gonna be to look at those tables that I'll get to sort of in the second half of the presentation, and try to recreate that for your farm, if you're planning to farm, if you have an existing operation. How many people have an existing operation? just about everyone. How many are responsible for managing the finances or the budgeting for your operation? Yeah, she's pointing at you. Excellent. And we have a small enough group here. Can I just ask, what's everyone growing? What are you guys growing? We'll start with you, Kayla.
Oh, I'm hoping to grow pumpkin squashes or
Pumpkin, squashes, and gourds, okay. Mixed veggies.
I do pigs. Sometimes I do sheep and chickens, but then I have to let.
Pigs, it is then. All right. Good, Jill. Good deal. And
We're not so much production farm people really are, but we do grow veggies and we have eggs.
veggies and eggs.
Yeah.
Yep. And education.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. That's a useful product as well. And maybe back there. Okay. Mixed vegetables, common theme. This is great. Go ahead. Veggies and eggs. And
My wife has a contract organic feed business, and then I work in extension, so work with a lot of different.
great. And Sam? Nothing today. Maybe it will inspire you. Okay, great. Well, I think I'll just get into it. So the mixed veggie one is a tricky one. I'll just say that outright. For a lot of the discussion I'm having today, yes, it's going to be applicable across, and it's definitely going to be applicable to mixed veggies. In fact, it's going to be applicable to all businesses. But there's some intermediary challenges, and we'll get to that. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised on the Olympic Peninsula, and born in Shelton, Washington. That's me on the tractor, the old Ford tractor, in about 1986, 1987, somewhere there. I grew up on the Olympic Peninsula, then went to college at University of Washington, studied English literature and philosophy, graduated during the Great Recession, and no one was really hiring anyone, let alone English majors at the time. So I actually started a vegetable garden service business. We installed about 35 vegetable gardens around Seattle that first and only year, and actually had a vegetable gardening service that we'd come back and grow vegetables for people. We learned the disparity between how much time and effort and time driving between sites and how much we're charging the clients. And okay, you got $40 a week and here's your 1 carrot or whatever. So learned a lot during that. Then I went on and started a popcorn business. So something that I thought would scale a little bit better, but wasn't nearly as close to my heart. Don't chase the money, ladies and gentlemen. I spent the whole time wanting to get back into farming in some way. It took me about 8 years to do that, and then I got back into farming. I relaunched the family farm in 2018. It's been in operation since 1888, but it wasn't really doing much at the time. And so I relaunched it, but it took me 3 years of working off farm to sort of support that as I was scaling up slowly. And actually, just this year in 2021, I am now a full-time farmer, which I'm pretty excited about. Thank you. I'm stoked, and I'm sure this little guy would have been stoked to know that too. He just has to wait 35 more years. All right, so a few caveats. This is a finance presentation. I am not a CPA. I'm not a finance professional. I'm not a tax professional. Keep in mind that you're taking financial advice from a farmer right now, so just keep that in mind. The presentation won't be technical. Yes, it's finance, but you'll notice that the theme throughout is simplification. We're not going to be looking at long-form income statements. We're going to be looking at summary income statements. We're going to keep it to the high level. So what I really want everyone to walk away with today is the idea, just that really strong, crisp understanding of your income statement and your pro forma or your projected income statement looking into the future. And so really focusing on the forest, not the trees. I'm just a beginning farmer. USDA says we're all beginning farmers until we've been farming for 10 years. I'm about to the halfway mark, so just keep that in mind too. And then this is just me talking about my farm. This isn't a comprehensive study. It would be great if someone would do that. I would be interested in being involved in that project. But we do have other farmers in the room, right? So I might be calling, I won't call anyone, how about that? But it would be great if you have something, experience to share, to go ahead and just raise your hand and share it, that it's relevant to the slide. More warnings and caveats. I've simplified everything, rounded all the numbers. There's no, and 99 cents or anything like that. This is all, again, I feel like those details can distract from the bigger picture. So I've just, all the income statements you'll see, whether it's my farm or other businesses, they've all been simplified and rounded. I've excluded the shipping fees and distribution costs for my farm for this presentation. I wanted to keep it, every farm's gonna have a different go-to market model. And so I pulled these out just so we can kind of get an understanding for what a basic core model looks like, and then everything else is built on top of that. And we're just gonna be in income statement world today. We're not gonna be doing cash flow or balance sheets, which hopefully no one was really looking forward to those two components. But for the record, those are the other two critical financial statements for any business. And then my business is Pastored Livestock, but I think it'll apply, again, not only to all farms, but to all businesses. And lastly, if you're looking to get rich, this is the wrong session. In fact, I don't think there are any sessions here to help you get rich. But what I am excited about, like I said, I'm farming full-time now. I've got two and a half part-time helpers on the farm. Everyone's making about $20 an hour for farm work. So I'm pretty excited about that, to carry that into the future as well. All right, well, let's start with the why. So what if a farm isn't financially sustainable? All right, we just learned at our keynote that we're losing an acre, what is it, an acre per minute? We were losing 4,000 acres during during this conference, right? Here's a hypothetical scenario I'm sure we're familiar with. You work really hard, you get burned out. We're farmers, so we're probably gonna keep working, right? We're probably gonna work for 5 more years, even if we're burned out. Eventually though, if we're burned out and we're not making ends meet and the business isn't paying for itself, we're gonna quit. In all likelihood, maybe we have children. They're gonna see that, right? They're gonna see, oh, don't go there, like look elsewhere, look to the city, look to wherever for income. They're not interested, maybe someone passes away, the land's inherited, maybe siblings have it, easiest thing to do, sell it, it gets developed. Community loses its ability to feed itself, and then we have this disconnection from the land and lives that make our own life possible. And that ties into Farmer Thea from yesterday's keynote. She tied everything back to separation. If we're separated from the earth, we get all kinds of weird issues. And so I'm really passionate about the idea of keeping farms financially viable to keep people on the land. So what does true sustainability look like? I would say it's ecologically and economically literate land managers. The farm economy and ecology really have to thrive in this harmony. And this is complicated. I mean, this is asking a lot for farmers. We're already responsible for managing entire agro-ecosystems, right? And now we have to understand the market economy, we have to have a strong grasp of financial statements and budgeting and all of that. And it's just asking a lot. And then also, you can add in this other nexus, which is the cultural component. Farming and how we eat, how we grow our food defines us as a community, as individuals. And here we are, we're just trying to eke out a living in the middle of this complex knot. So that's all very complicated. I'm not going to get to all of it today, unfortunately, but we will try to simplify one piece of that, which is the financial side. Or said much more succinctly by Ron Finley, the funny thing about sustainability, well, you have to sustain it. All right, who's ready to talk about some income statements? Yeah, there we go. All right, get over it. Farming doesn't pay. Thank you, Mark Shepard, for that inspiring tidbit. So Mark Shepard, who here is familiar with Mark Shepard? Look up Mark Shepard if you're not familiar. He's a really interesting guy, practitioner of permaculture on a large scale. He's doing lots of cool agroforestry work. And his book, Restoration Agriculture in 2013, he actually goes on a bit of a rant about not only finances and how it's very difficult to make money in farming, but about conferences kind of like this. He says they propagate the myth of profitable farming. Well, Mark, I'm here to propagate the myth of profitable farming. I introduced this concept because I think this is conventional wisdom, right? We've all heard this. You can't make money in farming, don't go there. When I was 8, I told my mom I wanted to be a farmer, and she said, oh, well, always encouraging mom, but she was like, it's hard to make money in farming. So, yeah, here we go. Mark is our low bar for what's possible. I'm gonna try to advance a high bar for what I think is possible, and the reality for most farms is probably gonna be somewhere in the middle there. All right, so what's an income statement? It's also known as your profit and loss. This is your, what I would say is your primary financial report card. So you had report cards in school for each class you were in. This is your report card for your business. It allows you to measure business performance over time. So for farms, that's usually going to be season over season or year over year. Businesses will often do it in quarters. And what I think is really interesting is it allows you to compare your business to others. Even if it's a non-farm, even if it's in a completely different industry, you can still use the same sheets, the same financial statements to compare them and kind of understand how they operate differently. Really, really simple income statement overview. How much comes in? How much comes out? What's left over? All right, so now we get into some terminology. Can everyone read that all right? All right, cool. Revenue, money in, that's also called sales. You hear it referred to as the top line. This is our top line thinking or impact on the top line. This is your top line. Cost of revenue, direct costs. So this is where I start to deviate a little bit from conventional farming financial advice. So this is also called cost of goods sold. These are your variable costs or your direct costs. So for every carrot, you're going to need a seed. That seed's going to be a direct cost. It's not on the Schedule F. So the Schedule F, if you're a farmer and you file taxes, you're likely filing on your Schedule F form. There's no cost of revenue on the Schedule F. IRS doesn't think that farmers should know or are tracking their cost of revenue. If you look on the Schedule C, that's just about every other business, they track its revenue, cost of revenue, and it's expected that you're going to know that. For some reason, people don't expect farmers to know their cost of revenue. I think we should be using income statements much like the one you see here, which tracks your cost of revenue. If you subtract cost of revenue from revenue, that's your gross, question, yeah.
Is that different than cost of goods? Like a seed would be included.
So cost of revenue, cost of goods sold, for the purposes today, they're interchangeable. Yeah, and for product-based businesses, you'll typically hear cost of goods sold.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And if you subtract the two, you get gross margin. This is a very important metric for any product-based business that I think a lot of farms don't have. They don't know their gross margin, right? It's all lumped together, income, expenses, and at the end of the year, we hope it's positive at the bottom. And I definitely would encourage folks to, and we'll talk more about this, but to know their gross margin. And per my comment earlier about mixed veggies, it can get tricky, right? If you're trying to track your labor, and labor is a cost of goods sold if it's involved in production, then you want to understand what that is. Ideally, you would know per carrot, or per bunch of carrots, per sales unit, what your cost of labor is on that. Obviously, we're farming. Sometimes all the crops die. We can't get that. But what I would encourage us to do is to model it and then track it, right? Put down what we think it is, check at the end of the year, what was it actually? Oh, all the carrots flooded. We didn't get any carrots. Okay, well that's a problem, but it's also good to know that on your financial statements. Expenses, these are your overhead costs or your indirect costs. And so that's things that don't change with each incremental unit sold. So maybe your land payment, right? That's going to be an overhead cost. In a lot of businesses too, this is your management cost. So if you're CEO of your business, they get paid here. We are the CEO, whether we know it or not, of our farming businesses, oftentimes. This is where we should be getting compensated as the manager of our business too, right? And then lastly, net income, what's left over. If that's positive, it's profit, and if it's negative, it's loss. This is a real income statement right here. So on the bottom right, it's got the legend. We're adding 6 zeros to these. So where it says 29,000, that's actually $29 billion in revenue. Cost of revenue for this company was $21 billion, leaving a gross profit of $8 billion, expenses of $4 billion, and a net income of $4 billion. This is a Seattle-based food and beverage company. Any guesses who this might be? Starbucks, yes. This is Starbucks. But you can learn a lot just from looking at 5 lines. 5 lines, yeah, 5 lines here. 5 numbers tell us a whole lot about this business, right? They have a lot of revenue. They have a pretty healthy gross profit margin, 28%. And then at the end of the day, every dollar that flows into Starbucks, this is for 2021, 14 cents went right to the bottom line to net profit. So, pretty cool. Bet you didn't expect to look at a Starbucks income statement at a farming conference, right? Well, here's another one you probably weren't expecting to look at. This is a Seattle-based online retailer. So I'm throwing more, yeah, eye roll, great. I'm throwing a few more things out. So we said throwing a few more things out here. We said we could look at business performance over time. We've got 3 years here. And then we've also got the percentage of sales. So the percentage number, that's your percentage of revenue. So in 2018, again, same legend, this company had $233 billion in revenue, and so their percentage of revenue was 100%. For cost of revenue, it was $173 billion, so their cost of revenue was 74% of sales. So 74% of all the money in. At the end of the year, 6% of it flew to the bottom line, and this company had $13 billion in net income. And you can see, you can just learn a whole lot about a company by looking at these 5 lines over 3 years. From 2018 to 2020, revenue jumped up in 2019, and then it skyrocketed in 2020, right? What happened in 2020? Yeah, pandemic happened. Any guesses here? This is Amazon, yeah, absolutely. What's that? Oh, outside, okay. So, but what else can we learn from this, right? So the bottom line, 6% net income in 2018, 5% in 2019, and 6% in 2020. So the net income, the net margin, has been pretty consistent. But what happens when the revenue basically doubles is the net income basically doubles too. So pretty interesting story to learn here. All right, let's look at one more income statement. This one's Hungry Hollow Farm. So here's Hungry Hollow Farm. There is no special legend. These are actual numbers. We're not doing didn't do 23 billion in 2018. And so what can we learn from this? We can learn that revenue grew from in 2018 from $23,000 up to, we're projecting about $250,000 in 2022. So obviously 2022 hasn't happened yet. 2021 isn't completely over. So we're filling in with projected numbers here on the right side. On the left side is all actual numbers that have been rounded. So what's the story? The story is in 2018 we lost $2,000. Not atypical for a first year in a farming operation to lose some money. In 2019 we lost money again. We lost $4,000. Something cool happened in 2020. We actually posted a profit for the first time. In 2021, something quite cool happened, which is our profit margin became reasonable. It became much more like, these income statements here, where you actually have a chunk that flows to the bottom line. And then in 2022, we're planning to just keep growing. Yeah. Oh, good question. No, actually, it's just been, so in 2020, we saw some lift from the pandemic-related online sales surge. And then and I'll jump into all of this, but almost all of our sales, like Amazon, is online. And our internet traffic has just sort of stayed high. And so the main thing that happened in 2021 is we over doubled in production, right? And the demand was there. So because the demand was there, we were able to double the production, and that transforms the business when you can make those stepwise improvements. All right, any questions about what you're looking at here? Do these numbers make sense? Okay, there's a lot that these numbers don't show, right? We're not looking at the balance sheet. It doesn't show how much money I invested to start the company. It doesn't show if I have debt or assets that I own or anything like that. It doesn't show how the cash flow's flowing in and out. And it doesn't show what the expenses are, right? Did I pay myself $39,000 salary and then also have $28,000 in profit in 2022? No, there's other expenses in there. So we'll get to that. I couldn't resist this slide. So which business is strongest financially? These are the percentage of total revenue, right? It's kind of fun. I mean, these businesses are completely different, but you can look at them side by side. Who would say Starbucks is the strongest financially? 1, 2. How about Amazon? Amazon, all right. How about Hungry Hollow? Thank you. I appreciate that. It's very generous. From what we're looking at here, Starbucks looks like it's the most profitable, right? It's got the highest net margin. That's great. What this doesn't show is the scale, right? Amazon's volume is much larger, so their overall profit's higher. Hungry Hollow has a higher net income projected as a percentage of sales for 2022 than Amazon, so that's something, but we're much smaller, right? So a few takeaways from income statements. Your farm's a business, unless it's a nonprofit, and some people have nonprofit farms, so that's fine. But if you're operating a normal farm, it's a business, and it operates on the same financial framework as other businesses. As I've mentioned several times, it's your primary financial report card. This is critical to understand your understanding of your summary income statement, both in the past, present year, and looking forward, and to think about your farm in those terms. And Hungry Hollow Farm is a much better investment than Amazon and Starbucks, obviously. Or maybe not. We're closed for equity raise. Any questions before I go on to talking more about Hungry Hollow and really what we're doing? Nope. All right. So let's look at a little bit of farm history. So my great-grandfather came over from Kansas in 1888 looking for some farmland. He found some forest land. I think had one clearing on it already. Cleared a few more pastures. He was doing market garden, so veggies and grapes on about 7 acres of veggies. You imagine, no tractor, 7 acres of veggies. That's a lot of veggies. He had 7 children. That's probably why he had 7 children. And he had grapes. He was growing about 5 acres of grapes as well. When he passed, most of the land was put into permanent pasture, and it's been managed as a beef cattle and hay operation. My parents were there in the 80s. They did you-pick raspberries, strawberries, pumpkins, just for a few years before work pulled them off the farm. And then 2018, I came back to the farm. There was 4 old cows. One of the cows, Norman, was somewhere north of 25 years old. And the cows were just being kept to keep the grass down. And so I've what I say is relaunched the farm, put up a website selling direct to consumer for pasture-raised chickens, pork, beef, and eggs for now. And then for 2022 onward, I'm looking more towards, okay, we've got more fertility on the farm. The pastures are no longer completely deficient in every nutrient. What could we do botanically, whether that's fruit trees, berry orchards, interested in silvopasture, small market garden perhaps, and on a go-forward basis. Here's an aerial of the farmland. It's about 20 acres of pasture. On the right is our main hayfield. That's where most of the action happens. This is a hillside field. We raised pigs in that one this last year. We have another hayfield, winter area for the cows and a barn, and then what we call the back field, which is about 5 or 6 acres. It's currently being reforested. So we're not really farming that. The cows see it about twice a year for a week or two. Here's what it looks like on the ground level on a nice spring day when the buttercups are in bloom. And so we raise pastured poultry in the Southland-style floorless mobile coops. I'm sure if you know much about pastured broilers, you're familiar with those. We have a small herd of red Angus and black Angus beef cattle. In the background, might be hard to see, but we have our layered chickens that we just raise, and about 100 birds per coop, and we have a few of those that we pull through the farm, usually behind the cattle. Not pictured here is the pigs. So meat chickens, we're doing a slower growing Freedom Ranger breed of chickens, and that helps us sell a differentiated product than what most other farms are selling. We do on-farm processing. This is our WSDA licensed poultry processing facility. We've got our egg-laying chickens, which I mentioned. Our piggies, which I mentioned. I'll say a little bit more about the pigs. So we don't do any breeding on the farm. We get the pigs in the spring. We say goodbye to the pigs in the fall, get them off of our wet pastures, and take a break from pig farming, and then we look forward to piglets again in the spring. Here's our beef cattle herd mowing my lawn. I like to call them our lawn mowers. We let them into the yard this year. I don't know if we'll do that next year, but it was kind of fun to not have to mow the lawn all year and to have the cows in there. But we noticed there was a lot more fly action in and around the house. And so maybe we'll keep them out in the pastures this year. Here's our website. It's about 98% of our sales are through this website, and then about 2% is through on-farm pickup. The 98% that come through here, about half of those are for
It looks like Angry Hollow.
I just love this picture. I've been told that the chicken looks like a duck. It's not, it's a chicken. And I've been told the chicken looks angry.
Angry Hollow.
I think he's just serious about farming well and pasture-based agriculture. 50% of the sales are people that place their order online, and then they come and pick up from the farm. 0 shipping costs associated with that. And then the other 50% are folks that we ship to. And we ship via UPS anywhere in Western Washington. And what we do is it's in certain increments because it doesn't make any sense to ship 1 chicken, so we ship 4 chickens. You have to buy a chicken 4-pack, or a beef share or a pork share. And we put it in insulated boxes with a chunk of dry ice, and it gets there the next day, most of the time. And sometimes it gets there in 2 days, and that's why we put extra dry ice in the box. Here's just a look at our web store. It's remarkably simple. We don't sell pork chops. We don't sell steaks. We just sell shares. We sell the smallest shares we can legally, which is an 1/8 beef and a 1/4 pork. And we do all on-farm slaughter. So we have, for our pork and beef, we have a mobile slaughter unit come out. They take the animals. They take them to our local butcher. And so we're really just plugging it into the existing local economy infrastructure. And we don't do any livestock transport, except for when we buy yearling calves. They come in via transport, but we don't own that. They slaughter on site, so they come out, shoot the animal on site in a paddock, then they gut it, they throw it in their freezer truck, take it 20 minutes to the butcher, and then if it's a beef, it'll hang for 2-3 weeks. If it's a pork, then they're going to cut it, and we'll wait a few more weeks for the cures. Exactly, and what we do is we do offer custom cuts. If people want that, they have to buy at least a 1/4 beef or a 1/2 hog because that's the minimum customization level for our butcher. But most of our customers don't want the customization. They want us to choose, so they get a set. We just choose some popular cuts, pretty straightforward, and they like that. And they like that they don't need to go out and buy a chest freezer. Yeah.
How do you communicate that you have a product ready? Is it through email?
How do we communicate that we?
That you have a product ready because you
Yeah.
have cattle ready all the time.
No, we rarely do. Yeah, how do we communicate how we have pork and chicken, or product ready? So what we do is on here, like here where it says our bestseller or in stock, it will instead say next available June 2022. And then it'll say pre-order, they can pre-order, and if it's within 6 months of the date, we capture it then. They pay now, and which it's sort of like a CSA model. They're paying for us to help support the cost while we raise it, and then they get it in June. And we try to make it as seamless as possible. 1 click, and then everything shows up on the date they expect it to.
Well, and it's constant communication as well, instead of just saying it's sold out. It's like,
Yeah.
wait, you can get it now.
Yep. Yeah, it is a little tricky. We don't like to take money too far in advance, or we could, I don't know, it just feels weird for us to be taking, like, for 2022 beef orders, we open on January 1st. And I've got probably 100 customers who have been told that, and about 50 that are probably going to get on January 1st because they want to make sure they get it. A common theme here is creating more demand than supply. There's some weird psychology that goes on there, but as a producer, I would much rather know there's more demand for my product than supply than to be like, man, I have 4 freezers full of chickens and no one wants. That's just a little sad, right? So I always like to build out the market first and then sort of build the product to support that. Yeah.
Are you shipping all across the nation, or do you have certain?
God, no.
Okay, I was just like, because we're here at Tellus and we're supporting local food. I just wondered, how far is your radius?
Yeah, good question. So, and I guess I'm supposed to be repeating the questions for online. How far is our radius for shipping? So, we'd only ship within Western Washington. Legally, we could ship just fine within the state of Washington because all of our product is state licensed. Nothing against Eastern Washington, but I would just encourage any customers over there, and we do this often, to support their farms over on the east side of the state. There are farms, there's some bigger ones in, Midwest, California, Georgia. I'm not going to name any names, but they're pasture-based farms. They do nationwide shipping. And I don't know. I don't want to take a customer away from someone in another state. We're small. We're a tiny farm. The Seattle metropolitan area is much bigger than we could ever serve. And so why ship outside of that? Yeah. Say that one more time? Yeah, we're using Gray's Cart, put out by Seven Sons Farm, yep. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and it's a great platform. I like it. Yeah, it doesn't have everything that you might want, but they're pretty responsive, and that they're building it as they go. And it works for Seven Sons. I think they do about 15 million in revenue every year selling pastured livestock. So works for them. It's good enough for me. Yeah, but there are other options too. Yeah, so this is a pork quarter share. This is actually our current pricing, which is $438 for a quarter pork. It's 35 pounds minimum. It's usually between 35 and 40 pounds of pork, and that's our current rate. We had a feed. It includes everything. Yes, there's no hanging weight calculation, deposit, pay twice, anything like that. It's just pay once and you're done, and it includes everything, which means it includes the slaughter cost, all the transport costs, the butcher cost, including the curing costs and all that, which can be more or less depending on what people do. We favor simplicity wherever we can, and I think our customers appreciate that. Yeah. All right, a few notes on distribution. How are we doing on time? Okay. So we do, I already mentioned this, so we can skip past this, but about half of it's on-farm pickup, the other half's home delivery. We're trialing some more local area home delivery in the Olympia, Kitsap area that we don't have to charge the quite high UPS charges, and instead we're just going to drive a van out there once a month, or right now it's drive my car out there once a month, and if I'm already in the area, or plan my workflow around that so that we can lower that cost of delivery. And we can do eggs. We can deliver eggs in that format. We don't ship eggs in UPS. What's that? Instafarm. Oh, yeah. I'm pretty committed to Hungry Hollow Farm right now. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Not really. We do have, well, yeah, I should say, our older laying hens we will sell just as backyard hens, and then every now and then we have local folks that want to buy live meat chickens. We do it, but we don't advertise it. Our whole processed chickens or live chickens? Well, what I would do is I would just back out the slaughter cost essentially. So if someone wanted to buy a 10-week-old broiler that's ready to process, I'd sell it for about $25 right now. Yeah. And I think I was about to mention this earlier, but our feed cost, if you're in livestock, I'm sure you can relate to this, it went up about 30% this year, right? So that can be rough on the margins. And so it's important to adapt and raise prices when that happens. I refer to our farm in a few different stages. So startup phase, learning from your mistakes. This is not when you want to be growing. This is when you want to be learning on a small scale. And then understanding the profitability of your enterprise. If you lose money on 5 pigs, don't grow to 50 pigs, right? You figure out the 5-pig profitability first, and then start scaling from there. And that for us was really years 1 and 2, the learning phase. Learning phase is always, right? We're never done learning. And then the growth phase, now we're focused on adding production volume. That was a big jump up in 2021 that we saw. And we're really focused, what was taking up a lot of my time is growing the customer base. And then third, the mythical mature or established phase. We're profitable. Our marketing expenses might be lower because we're not out there trying to acquire customers. We have an existing customer base. Maybe we have good word of mouth going on too, so maybe we don't really need much marketing, right? You always need some marketing to keep people coming in the doors, but we're not out there trying to find new people in droves. And then optimization, and I'm kind of a perfectionist, so it's great to have a nice business that you can just be tweaking, right? You know, we all know there's a million different things we could do to make our farms a little better, a little more optimized. Well, for me, as we're kind of reaching the carrying capacity of our 20 acres, I'm really excited to be shifting my eye. Okay, well, you can make the layer tractor, the layer coops a little better, or this marketing messaging can be a little better, really focusing on that optimization instead of more growth, right? You can just focus on growth. You can go ahead and lease more land. Elliot Coleman has a really good comment on this in his book, New Organic Grower, where he says, the temptation to keep growing is always there. I have one word of advice, don't do it, right? And that's because, and instead, he says, raise your prices. If you find your ideal size, if you have more demand than supply, just raise your prices a little bit. And it'll be great for the health of your business, and it'll be great for your sanity, right? So 2 key strategies I want to hit on, and then we'll get more into the other stuff. So differentiate your product. That means we're competing on quality, not price. We want stuff that tastes better. We want stuff that's more nutritious. And what I didn't put on here, but which is equally important, would be the stuff that stands out, right? Stuff that's memorable, so something that's different. They can't get it at PCC or Whole Foods. Educate customers about positive externalities of what we do. And this is always a tricky one, because what we're doing oftentimes on a small scale is providing really good land stewardship that doesn't damage our watersheds, right? That provides habitat for wildlife. A lot of farms aren't doing that, and so it's on us. This is a competitive advantage for us that we need to be talking about. We need to be sharing this story. And there's a social component too. You know, we're creating good farm jobs. When people come to work, they don't have to go into a chicken shed with 10,000 birds in it and wearing a mask, right? They can go out in the field on a sunny day and hopefully not nap, but enjoy enjoy your time. Next strategy I want to talk about is this concept of being a price maker, not a price taker. Price maker is setting the price you need to have a healthy income statement, right? And to do that, of course, you need to have differentiated product. You need to be reaching the right market with the right messaging. A price taker, on the other hand, would be someone that's letting someone else set the price. And most farmers are price takers, right? The current price for a bunch of carrots is $3.50. I'm charging $3.50. Hopefully, I can make a profit off that. And then I have a comment from Farmer Patchen. He's been with us for a few years now. I asked him what would he add, or what would he want to tell to a group of farmers about finance, and he said, charge what you're worth. You're doing great work. We have this tendency to undervalue what we're doing. So this common theme of making sure you're charging what you're worth. Elliot Coleman's advice, if you're selling out, increase your prices. And if you can't sell your products, are you reaching the right market with the right message and the right distribution method? Check those 3 things. And then after that, is your product different enough? Is it good enough, right? Is the quality there? And then just some long-term strategies we're focused on. Further differentiation, that could be different breeds, different finishing methods, decreasing our inputs. And so that might be more fruit trees, so that we don't have to buy in quite as much pig feed, for example. Diversify the pharmacology. Again, diversify our product offering. The more products we have, the more we can sell. Account expansion is when you have one customer, they're buying your eggs. Great, maybe they want to buy chickens now. Maybe now they want to buy some carrots that we're growing. So focusing on expanding what we can sell to existing customers rather than trying to get new customers. Value-added products, that could be things for us like chicken broth, chicken cuts even would be a value-added product we're not currently doing. And then preparing for climate change, right? Making our landscapes more resilient. For us, that's going to, I think, will take the form of putting more trees in our pastures. It's good for the animals to have shade. It's good for the pastures to have that break, that moisture retention. And so looking more towards agroforestry examples. And then lastly, collaborating with others. So we've got, if we've got a farm store going, I've got a baker that lives down the road. He can put his bread in there, right? Let's start bringing people together that are producing things that aren't competing with ours, but are synergistic. Yeah.
Bread is a really good example of something that has like a really short shelf life.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I do PSA, and I ask my customers, what do you want to see beyond vegetables that are in there? And they say meat, dairy, bread. Have you figured out a way to incorporate those folks if you go out and buy loaves of bread?
Well,
Are you trying them? Or like,
yeah, the question is how to incorporate bread, for example, which has a low shelf life, short shelf life.
yeah, with, I mean, your frozen meat products.
Yeah, what's great about meat is that the shelf life is easy to work with, right? As long as you have the freezer space. Well, what I'm imagining is we do have a baker that's got like this really cool off-grid baking, doing old world breads in our neighborhood. And I'm imagining putting his stuff in the farm store 1 day a week. So on Saturdays is farm pickup day. Cool, he bakes already on Fridays, so it's perfect. And putting his stuff in there, small amount, it'll sell out. Again, that sort of scarcity dynamic. And that's all I have in mind on that right there. It'll never be a big part of our business, but it can add to the customer experience. Yeah. And right now, we don't do any mixed veggies, so we work with another local farm who we're a drop site for their CSA, so that everyone in our neighborhood doesn't have to drive all the way to their farm or to the market. They can just stop right here at our farm. And then when they drive up to get their veggies, they buy some eggs from us, right? So stuff like that. All right. Hey, Sam, what time are we done today? I just want to make sure I have good timing. Okay, cool. So I have this question. It's rhetorical, but it's a great question for all of us to be thinking about it. What's your farm's ideal production value, or production volume? And that's going to be, I tend to think of that on a per product basis. So why don't we look at the production model for Hungry Hollow? So here's the first table I talked about. It's going to, again, these slides will be made available. When you look at it like this, it all seems very simple, right? So we produce 500 chickens in our first year, and in 2022, we're doing 3,000. These are small numbers, right? Pigs, 5, we'll grow to 60. We're at 60 this year, and we're just going to stay put for now. Pigs, too many pigs can be a very bad thing for a small farm. So we think we found our sweet spot. Cows, it's a small herd of cattle. These are numbers that are being processed each year, so we're currently slaughtering about 5 cows a year. As we raise more broiler chickens, we can raise more cows. Pretty cool. Get more fertility, more biomass production. So I think that number will continue to creep up. And then layer chickens. And the 2022 numbers are basically our carrying capacity, I think. We could probably add some more layers if we really wanted to cram in some more. But as I've told Ryan, actually, the eggs are kind of like our business card. We don't make a lot of money on the eggs, but they sure get people driving up the driveway and help us meet people. So I appreciate that. So I would imagine, this would be a great tool. This is sort of the beginning of if you're starting to create your own budget, this is the foundation. This is the very first thing that you're going to look at. Obviously, we're farming, right? We don't know how many chickens are going to survive. We don't know how many carrots or tomatoes are going to make it through. But we can plan for it, we can budget for it, and then track it. And at the end of the year, see, okay, how'd we do? And over time, I think we can get pretty precise, barring extreme weather events and heat domes and things like that can completely screw us up. Here's our pricing model. You can see our prices have changed over time. They've increased. A lot of that's inflation. A lot of that's just us trying to maintain our margin. Some of it can be margin expansion. And so I don't know for sure our 2022 price on broilers is going to be $31 a chicken, but right now that's what we're planning, right? And as we get closer, what we'll do is we understand what we want for our margin and what's happened to all the different input costs, and then we'll decide on our price. We try to decide on our pricing per year and stick to it, but when the price goes up 30% for feed in a year, we're going to have to make some mid-year adjustments, right? All right, I know I've been harping on this, but one slide, and I'll stop talking about it. 3 common pricing mistakes: not charging enough to pay a reasonable wage, not charging enough to cover your overhead expenses, right? And then at the end of that, not charging enough to produce a profit, right? If you're not doing these 3 things, then you're not thinking like your business like, Howard Schultz would, right? If we're talking about Starbucks. Not that our business is Starbucks, but I think that we can learn a lot from that way of approaching our business. So I showed you our production model, and I showed you our pricing model. That's all you need to understand how much revenue you're projecting, right? So this is our revenue model. We just times pricing by production, and you can see this is going to match up pretty closely with what we saw before for revenue. And that gets us to about our $250,000 revenue base. Any questions on this? It should be, I think, pretty straightforward. Okay. There's more numbers on the next slide, so here's your warning. So unit economics. This is crucial. If there was a one takeaway slide, maybe this is it, is understand your unit economics. This is an example here. This is our broiler chicken unit economics for 2021. We want to know all of our input costs on this. The most important number we can come to is that total cost of goods sold, COGS is short for cost of goods sold, that's our total cost of this product, about $20. We know it costs us about $20 to produce a chicken. Notice there's labor built into this model, right? We've got labor, actually there's two lines of labor. We've got labor to raise the chicken, grow the chicken, raise the chicken, and we have labor costs to process the chicken, to slaughter, butcher the chicken. And we want to have a profit margin on top of our labor, right? We're not in business to make $0 for the business. If we don't have money for the business, it's not going to be able to reinvest in itself, it's not going to be able to sustain itself over time, and it's probably not going to interest, the next generation, right? So we're paying ourselves here twice, and then we're paying our business here at the end with a 32% margin there. The takeaway here is try to do this for your products, right? Again, it's going to be hard for vegetables, but you can track your labor costs over time. You probably already know all of your hired help. You probably already know, if you don't, try to understand this, how many pounds of produce you sold, right? You can get to a labor cost per pound pretty easily with those two numbers, right? Obviously, different crops are going to have different labor costs per pound, but at least that anchors us in an average, right? All right, cost of revenue model. Now, this is where it's going to feel like I jumped a step, but once we understand our margin on each, once we've done that unit economics work for each product, we can then plug that into our cost of revenue model. So now instead of timesing our sales price by our production, we're timesing our cost by our production, which gives us a cost of revenue model. We now have the entire top half of our income statement completed. So here, in this case, it would be a projected pro forma income statement. What I'm calling a gross profit model, I don't think that's real terminology. This is how I'm thinking of these different models. So we got our revenue, cost of goods sold, gross profit, and then I put the percentage on there so we can understand what kind of gross profit percentage we're working with. Now, not all of our gross costs are going to live in those unit economics. So a big one for us is credit card fees, right? We could put that into our model, but not everyone pays with credit card. So instead we know, 78% of our customers are paying with a credit card or something like that. And then we can add the rest of that in to get our actual gross profit. This is the top half of our income statement. And I'm guessing a lot of you came today thinking that we were going to spending a lot more time talking about the bottom half of our income statement, right? All the operating expenses. This is usually what we think about when we're budgeting. So now I wanted to call this one out. So built into our gross profit numbers here, our cost of goods sold, really, the COGS line, our labor is built in there, because remember back on our unit economics slide, we're building our labor into our cost of goods sold. So that means, if it takes $10 in labor to raise a chicken, raising 3,000 chickens, I know I have $30,000 in labor budget just for that chicken operation, right? And this is really helpful for planning and really helpful for keeping your costs in check and for tracking, because at the end of the year I spent $60,000 on labor for chickens, that's a very bad thing. At the end of the year, if I spent $25,000, great. I was budgeting a little bit more and we came in under, that's great. So once we have our labor costs per item and we already have our production model, we can figure out what our labor budget is, right? So our broiler chickens, up to about $30,000 in labor budget. Our pigs, $7,000, cows is $1,500, and then eggs is $8,000. So we have a labor budget in 2022 of $44,000, right? We can pretend like we're Starbucks and say it's $44 billion. How about that? Same idea though, same concept. That lets me hire, that lets me produce a staffing plan, scheduling, all of that. So very useful numbers to have. And then it's the bottom half, which is your operating budget. So typically these are very long. You do a long form and you're going to put every little thing in there. We do that, but we have it roll up into these summary categories, right? We have management, farm supplies, marketing, land, and then what I call miscellaneous, which I love that category because it takes our attention away from all the numbers and gets us to focus on the big picture instead. We want to understand those numbers. We want to look at them, make sure we're not spending way too much on conferences or something. Probably not conferences. But so this is our operating budget. Now, I want to call your attention to the top line there. It's management, right? So this is, a lot of the work I do is not just farming, right? It's sales work, it's customer service, it's marketing work. Should I be compensated for that work? Yeah, right? That's how the world works anywhere besides farming. So I think it's, obviously we didn't do it in the first 4 years, but I like to get to the point where we are. And I think that puts us on a much more stable ground, right? If I'm making money as a farmer, maybe I'm making, $20 an hour as a farmer, but then I'm doing all this other work so that I can be a farmer. I'm not making $16 or $20 an hour as a farmer. Maybe I'm making $12 an hour as a farmer. I'm working for the benefit of being a farmer. That's great, and I think we have to start there. But I would like to set this high bar of encouraging us to think about how can we get there, right? How can we achieve not only success as a farmer, but also success as a business. Just to reiterate that, so sort of earning money 3 ways. And this is my projection for 2022. I'm making money as a farmer. Yay! I'm making money as a business manager. I'm paying myself as a business manager. $1,000 a month is the plan for 2022. And then I have a net profit projection of $28,000, so I'm making money as a business owner too. The business is making money, management's making money, the farmer's making money. So theoretically, if I left, someone else could manage it, someone else could farm, the business would continue to produce a profit, and it could move. It could, say, pass to the next generation. I don't have kids yet, but it could, right? And so this is what I think of as, and maybe this is the slide, actually, as a takeaway. We're not just farmers. We're doing other things as well. We should be compensated for those. I don't have too much more. I just wanted to kind of provide that example. Hopefully my experience is something that you can benefit from. Any questions about all of those slides I just threw at you? I know it's a lot of numbers. Sure.
Just a question about your philosophy on sort of unit cost versus, I think initially you broke it down as like cost of goods and then expense. And I noticed like you had electricity on a per unit basis. I'm curious when you would put like electricity with your per unit cost of goods versus just like this is our electric bill.
That is actually a really good question, and I think you found a nice nuance here. We do budget it into our cost of, you caught me. We do budget it into our cost of goods sold, but we don't pay for it on our income statement and cost of goods sold, right? So it is flowing out as a miscellaneous expense on our income statement. So that is a bit of a mismatch. I don't know if I want to change it or not. I still want to track that it's there, and I want to take it into account. But that is a mismatch between the unit economics sheet and the income statement. And on that note too, so we talked about, I'm making money as a farmer, as a manager, and as a business. As far as the IRS is concerned, they don't care about any of that, right? I'm paying myself via a draw from the business, which won't even show up on the income statement, right? So, because that's an equity transaction, that's not a income or an expense. So yes, how we think about it and how we model it is going to differ necessarily from how it gets recorded and communicated to outside parties, for sure. Did that answer the question?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just kind of for your own sort of mental purposes, you break down that electrical cost per unit.
Yeah, because, and this is where it gets tricky. What's a direct cost and what's an indirect cost? Well, at the end of the day, like, we're going to be pretty practical about how we record it. I could, if I was really detail-oriented, I could go in there and build in an electrical cost and build a model that says, I think, 10% of our electricity went to chickens, and I could do a journal entry and move that up into cost of, I don't think that's a little bit more detail than I'm willing to do. Yeah, sure.
There was a 32% overhead, or something like that. Is that different from your expense?
So the two main groups are going to be costs of revenue and overhead expenses. Yeah.
So when you had your unit budget for the chickens, there was also, you had a line for your overhead there?
Nope. Yeah, the profit margin is in there.
Oh, that was the profit.
Yeah. So that's 32%, and that's on a per product basis, right? So then credit card fees comes out, maybe it's 29%. And each product's different, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, question over here.
What software are you using to track all this?
Oh, great question. Yeah, I use, for all the stuff you've seen here is Excel. I just do all the modeling in Excel or Google Sheets or whatever your favorite spreadsheet software is. And then I use QuickBooks we're all kind of married to QuickBooks at this point. There are other options. I'm sure they work fine too. I use QuickBooks for the actual accounting. Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. I didn't know briefing about farm finances to be so fun and engaging.
Yeah, I should have put that on the description. Will be fun and engaging.
But I also had a question for you. I was just wondering what motivated you to get into this niche in farming specifically? Like, do you like to eat this product? Do you like to cook this product? Or was it more so you wanted to regenerate your farm that had been more or less dormant for, a few, like, for a period of years? So
Yeah.
I'm wondering kind of how did you land in this particular?
Yeah, the question of how I became a pasture livestock farmer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the answer there is it's a little bit complicated, but animal welfare is a big driver for me. I don't think that we should be using factory farms. I think it's a terrible system, and it's very bad in pretty much any metric: environmental, welfare, how we identify. Talked a little bit how this is how we define ourselves as humans. Are factory farms how we want to identify ourselves as humans? I don't want to identify with that, right? So I came to it from animal welfare standpoint. I obviously have this family legacy, and so it was an exciting challenge for me with a business background to say, okay, could we make this financially viable? And then, yeah, all the other stuff is great. I love eating good chicken. I love knowing where my food came from. And I'm excited now, too, about having, we did a soil test previously, and there were no nutrients in our soils, basically. Very low potassium, reasonable amount of phosphorus, and no nitrogen, really, to speak of. So it's great to be able to start rehabilitating the land and then start thinking about more botanically, right? I do have a few more slides, just 2 more, I think. So here's just another question for you. Which business would you want? So here's your test, your quiz for the day. Look at that. Yeah. I'll let you take it in for a minute here. So who would do number 1? Who would want number 1? All right. How about number 2? I mean, number 2 makes more money, right? At the end of the day. Yes. Yeah, your soul. It's hard to put a price on a soul. Yeah, I would take business number 1 personally. It's why would you want twice the headaches for $5,000 more, right? I think that this is an important takeaway. I think the way a lot of us think about growth is we have to get bigger to get more profitable. We have to get bigger to get more profitable. We have to get bigger to make more money, or it's really, revenue is ultimately a vanity metric. We get to say, oh, we did $500,000 in sales this year, or I sold this many tons of apples, and it's like, that's great. How much did we keep? How much was left over? How hard are you working for that? And for me, obviously I've designed a business that's sort of a niche business that operates on a limited scale, but can exist profitably, right? And so I also am drawn to business number 1. Key takeaways. True sustainability requires ecological and economic sustainability. We can be as ecologically sustainable as we want. If the economy of scale, or if the economies aren't there, then we're just visiting, right? We're not creating permaculture. Farms operate on the same basic framework as any other business. We saw that. Farming without understanding financial statements is like farming blind, right? We don't know what's going to happen in the day. I've talked to farmers who, at the end of the season, oh, how did you do? Oh, yeah, we don't think we made any money this year. And it's just like, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that, because you're doing a lot of work. And what can we do? What's not right? And oftentimes it's the price is too low. People have this resistance, and I understand. It's great to be able to serve your local community nutritious food at a reasonable price, but you're not doing anyone any favors if your farm isn't financially sustainable, right? You'll be doing this great service as a nonprofit for a few years, and then you'll go away. You won't be able to sustain it. Healthy margins are crucial. Begin with the end in mind. So start with your farm's ideal scale. How big are we? What are we trying to do here? And then can we reverse engineer an income statement that we'd be happy with, right? That's going to pay us at every stage. And the last one, your farm should pay you at every stage. That's all I got. Yeah, Ryan?
Two couple questions. Your Angus, you do 100% grass fed?
Yeah.
Finish?
Yep.
And then with that, at what age do you slaughter for
Yeah.
100% grass fed?
Yeah, so the question is, do we do grass-fed?
Do you go by weight or?
Good question. No, we're getting really good at visual inspection.
Yeah.
Degree of finish was a good learning experience for us, is understanding when that animal is ready to go, which for us is between 27 and 30 months on a 100% grass-fed diet.
And with, this may be, I don't know, with your beef shares, are you able to, with the butcher you use, are you able to include any kind of like, marrow bones or organ with any of your beef shares? And if not, does the butcher just keep?
Yeah, it's a question on our beef shares. Do we keep the marrow bones and the organs? We do. Yeah, we get all of that. It costs a little bit extra to get the organs. I think they charge like $40 for a set of offal, which is a little bit hard to recoup that on that set of offal because not everyone wants it. But we do it anyway. We try not to waste anything more than we have to. They package our soup bones for us and label them as soup bones, our prime bones, and then everything else gets labeled, we sell is dog bones, basically. And customers can take those with their share if they want, and if they don't want them, then they end up going to dog food customers. Yeah. Yeah, and on our beef, we cut all of our own hay on farm, so we feed them grass hay for about 4 months a year. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
So what's your lead time for getting the slaughter to happen? You just call the guy and he comes next week, or
No, yeah, good question. Lead time on slaughter, we book everything about 18 months in advance right now. And then we try to plan really well, and sometimes we have to move dates around. But for our butcher, they want us on, if we have 50 or 60 pigs coming up in the fall, they need to know that, and they want to know that like 18 months in advance right now. Yeah, and then on the beef, same idea. Because we work with the same slaughter company and butcher for both beef and pork. So for us, it's one email to the butcher, they coordinate with the slaughter company.
so you had a 3-month window when they were ready?
We have a slaughter date booked, and then we hope that the animals grow out the way we want, and if they don't, then we say, hey, our animal's not ready, we need to reschedule, and they're pretty good at accommodating us. Yeah.
Are you doing, is it USDA inspected or is it all custom?
It's all WSDA. All WSDA. Yeah, so we're operating under the custom exempt rules. Yeah. Yep. Any other finance related or otherwise? All right, well, thanks guys. I appreciate you sticking around to hear about finance at the end of this conference. Yeah, thanks. So you got your squash plan in mind?
My mind is just blown, like, this whole weekend, I have to like sit at home and absorb.
That's what I figured. I was like, oh, so many of them are like, I need these slides to really sit with and.
Yeah, they're
And
gonna
then
be.
there's other ones that's like, I really want to go to this one, like this one, I'm probably not going to need this information for another 4 or 5 years, hopefully.
Right.
It'll help me build budgets and stuff like that,
But put it in your
not
back
on a
pocket.
personal level.
Yeah.
But there's other things that I went through that was like, well, I need this for the organization I work for, this will really help, but there's other ones that's like, I really want to go to this one instead, so.
Yeah.
It'll be good to get all of them.
Yeah. Agroecology. That was probably a great session. I look forward to seeing that one. Cool. Well, glad you guys could come. We can resell our chickens.
So I can include your chickens in my
Yes.
offering,
Yeah,
but not.
but not beef or pork. All three are WSDA, but the WSDA allows resale of chickens. So I can sell my chickens to a restaurant or a retailer. I can't sell my beef or pork. I don't know why. But those are the rules.
I don't know what it was or where it was, but I read something that was doing chickens like that have to be sold within 48 hours.
and that's the special poultry permit.
If you go to the WSDA website and get the green book, it goes through all the differences in that, you know what the green book is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all in there.
Yeah,
There's all-
they had that too, yeah.
But it's severely limiting to do that. You've got to sell it within 28 or 48 hours. It can't be frozen. Customers have to come to the farm. They have to pay you on the farm. It's not easy for most farms.
Yeah,
And
that's one of the big issues that I've seen on Vashon is, you know, there's not a whole lot of, you know, pasture protein farms out there. I think one, for the cost of just transport to get the animals off island,
Mhm.
to butcher, and then back on island,
yes,
you
yep.
know, to sell and stuff like that. So a lot of the people that do broilers like that, it is, you know, within that 48 hours, you know, they already have, you know, a customer base of, you know, 30, 40 people that they know.
Yeah.
You know.
Vashon is a good example where the custom special poultry permit might work well. You're all on the same island.
Yeah,
Right?
You know Seabreeze Farm out on Vashon?
I've heard of it, yeah, I haven't been out there.
Yeah, they have
Thank you.
a really robust, product they just do out at farmers market every weekend on Sunday. Yeah, I don't know what their butchering is like, but I think they sell their stuff fresh.
I snuck in at the very end, so I'm sorry I missed.
You missed it.
But
It'll be
seemed
online,
like
right?
it was great. Oh yeah, true. Oh,
Yeah, for sure, email or whatever.
I don't know if that's on.
No, it's not. He
But,
turned it off.
okay, good. Gosh, I don't even know where to start. So I'm not a farmer per se yet, but in some ways, you know, working towards stuff and with a budding regenerative farm, agri-village, actually in Arlington. So
Okay.
people are getting together.
Awesome.
200 acres to grow and really get together.
Yeah.
You know, so there's kind of
That's what it was.
I do
Okay.
think in there, and I spent, you know, lots of hours.
I got really interested in eco villages like 10 years ago. Let me know in Port Townsend.
Yeah, that's a really popular one.
Hear updates and everything.
Yeah.
Yep, that sounds right.
Power through the
I'm not
next 2
sensing that
years.
one.
Oh, yeah, it'll go by before
But
you know
just
it.
like,
It'll go by before you know it.
you know, a couple things that we've been hearing lately about is how hard it is to find.
Oh, yeah, no, I was there.
I'm like, I've already counted down the days, and I'm not even 1 year into my.
For USDA,
active
yeah, there's
dating
not much.
program.
So are you,
Like, I just need to like.
is one of anything out on the peninsula?
Yeah, we're blessed to have
rolling
service.
And
Oh, yeah.
think about it farming, like day,
Yeah, we've heard a little.
during the
bit
day,
about
during the night, the first thing I wake up and think
Yeah.
about.
Oh, yeah. Our
farming.
so our slaughter companies, A&L.
Wait for the
A&L.
18 months before I got out.
So they come out and they do the
On
whole
YouTube and, you know.
and all these activations.
Trying to
They
visit
go
farms.
all the way up, they go down, like,
And this is like their book.
yeah, and they're booked.
Yeah,
And
it'll-
honestly, their business
it'll
is
go by
thriving
before you know it.
because it's just, no one else is doing it. They just keep
If you ever wanna come out.
Competition, yeah.
It used to be like $70 a head for cattle.
Yeah, that's what I would like to do.
And they're in and out, right? So they're, shoot,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
so, yeah, they got a little business going.
Yeah.